So I'm Martin Alonga, and with Martin Hub. I'm the Innovation Research and Development Director, and it's a pleasure to meet us all here today. Some persons I might know, some I probably am meeting for the first time. We're going to know ourselves as we go ahead. So for today's webinar, we'll be looking at these key things, two key things: customer segments, early stage adopters. What are these things and how do they meet? Very important. What are they and how do they meet and where do they meet? So our outline is very simple. We'll look at these two concepts. We'll look at where they meet. We'll look at objectives, which are very important to be able to drive our understanding of what we want to achieve with the session. And we'll have some icebreakers, to ease out on the discussions. The first thing we want to look at is customer segments. So what really are customer segments? What really are customer groups? What really are they? It's a word that's we probably are very familiar with, but it might be something that we want to ponder about again and really understand it. And how do we identify these customer segments? The first thing we want to understand about customer segments is that a segment from the word, it's a group of something, a group of people, a group of quantities, a group of items, a group of anything, which we segment, we put them in various groups based on different kinds of characteristics. Like we see in the picture that we have the green, we have the yellow, we have red, and they probably are grouped according to colors and other things. Maybe if we do some metric measurements, maybe some are a little bit fatter than the other, some are taller by a little inch and all of that. So these are all characteristics that are used to identify different things to be able to group them within different segments of the population. And here we'll have to understand we're looking at startups, we're looking at companies, we're looking at businesses. Two things we want to look at in being able to identify the customer segments is what are their grouping characteristics? What are the needs? What are the wants? What are the needs? What are the wants? What are the short-term things that they need to be able to achieve wants in the long term, which probably want to spread out as their goals. Somebody in doing a fashion startup to be able to transform Cameroonian fabrics and get a marketplace to be able to supply and do supplies across Africa. What are your segments? What are the short-term needs? What are the long-term needs of your customers that you want to be able to address? Two very important things. What are the needs? What are the wants? What are the grouping characteristics that I want to look at in these different groups? Okay. So one key question that I want to ask ourselves at this point is, can you situate where your different customer segments are and who they are? Very important question that we have to answer at the end. So just be thinking about it as we're going along. The next big question we want to answer is why does this even matter? Why is it important for us to be able to segment our customers? Why is it necessary? So we have a whole lot of reasons beyond what we have right now. One is going to help us in achieving effective communication. It's going to help us for better product development. It's going to increase customer satisfaction, and it's also going to give us higher returns on profits. And very importantly, it's going to provide for us other measures at the competitive edge of our businesses, of our startups. Where would you say that you have an edge in these things that we've listed? Effective marketing. How does customer segmentation help us to achieve effective marketing? Because like we realize that's the end goal of this, because customer segmentation, identify your customers, is to be able to help us to gain early market entry, and be able to carry it sustainably to the end. So effective market communication, if we don't understand who our customers are, who our users of our products or services are, it becomes very difficult to communicate to them and with them effectively, because we have to understand what kind of messages do we want to provide. We have to be able to tailor them to the different needs. We cannot take information or messages meant for people in the fashion industry, and we send them to people in agriculture without tailoring it to meet their needs. It's true, people in agriculture might need they need to dress, they need to wear dresses, of course, right? And what kind of dresses do you want to sell to them? And to what class of people in agriculture? Because there are different levels of agriculture. Broadly, you have producers, you have distribution, you have consumers, right? And in each of these levels, there are different categories of people there, and they use different kinds of fashion of dresses. So what you're communicating to people who are producers at the levels of the farms, what your startup is communicating to them will be different from what you're communicating to people who are into distribution in the agricultural food chain. Though they are all in agriculture, but they have different specific characteristics that are important for us to understand to be able to know exactly how effectively we have to communicate to them to achieve our marketing goals. The next point is better product management and development. So let's still use agriculture for now. We might take another example later on. In that food chain, for instance, we have three levels. And if we have our startup that's at a level of uh, the producers down there at the farm, the local producers, I want to be able to develop this product to serve these three different segments: a level of producers, distributors, and consumers. It means that we have to engage in product development, which means that effective customer identification and segmentation would help us to know how our product is going to develop over time to be able to meet these different categories of users or of customers over time. Very importantly. The next we want to look at is increase customer satisfaction. When we're able to understand who our customer is, then we're able to provide them tailored communication, which increases their satisfaction because we're able to have tailored feedback, because we're giving them what they expect for us to communicate to them about and how they probably would like us to communicate with them. So we'll have satisfaction because we're not giving them information which is irrelevant. We're not over communicating and we're not under communicating. So there is customer satisfaction. We're not giving them a product that does not meet their their needs. You know, in the previous slides, we talked about needs and wants. What are the features in our product? What are our service offers that we're providing? And how do they meet their needs to be able to get them satisfied? And all of these should be able to culminate in higher profitability, because if we're able to communicate with our customers whom we've identified, we're able to develop the products along the value chain that meets their various needs. We're able to gain customer satisfaction, would have retained customers, will retain them and will be coming over and over to be able to use our products or services, what the startup or company is offering. And this will in turn transform into higher productive profitability over time. So there is a connect, there is a link between all of these various parts of why we want to know who our customers are and what they do. Why does it matter for us to know them, to be able to segment them in their various categories? So through this webinar, beyond the other examples that you guys will provide for us to discuss about, let's stick with agriculture, which is a framework which we've created, and we've been able to talk about three levels, three categories. So it gives us an understanding as we go forward. We're still on customer segments, and one of the things we want to look at, the next thing we want to look at in that is, how is segmentation achieved? We've been able to look at what a segment is. We've been able to look at why we need it, why it's important, and now we want to look at the how. How do we achieve it? Because we might know that it is important. We might know that it is important for us to have it. We might know what it is, but now how do we achieve it? We all do questionnaires for different things to be able to gather data on different startups for different reasons, and this is how we do it, you know. And these are the kinds of information that we want to gather to be able to help us segment our customers in different groups. So the very first thing there that we want to be able to get is demographic information, or you might want to call it socio-demographic information. So you want to be able to understand the age group, the age group of your customers. You want to be able to understand the gender of your customers. You want to be able to understand their income levels, their educational backgrounds, their occupation, family size, and so on and so forth. These are key because the income levels will be able to drive the purchase power of your product or service over time. And you want to be able to understand that, okay, I'm doing this fashion product, this clothing line, which is meant for three categories of people within the agricultural food chain, from the level of producers, distributors, and consumers. You want to be able to do that. Now you want to further segment. Now you have three broad categories. We want to further segment who are those who are part of the producers at the local level. In what bracket are they? Are they old people, or are they Gen Zs who are doing Gen Z agriculture? They'll have different needs. Are they more female or male? What's their income level? Can they purchase high have sensors to be able to determine, to read the soil levels, and the chemical composition of the soil? Can they purchase those things to use in their farms? Yeah, those things are good, but can they purchase it? Do they have the income level to do that? You understand the occupation. Okay, you're a farmer. Beyond that, is there another thing you do? Because that can lead to increase in income that can help them to be able to purchase what you're selling, what your product is, or your service, be able to use your service. Maybe it's consultancy, it's agri-tech consultancy. You'll be able to do that. What's their family size? Do they have a large family that they have to feed, or it's a one-man agri-tech guy? All of these have the power to be able to drive the end result of your product, and will help you to understand exactly where the customers fit, and you can group them to be able to know that, okay, at the level of local producers, these are the people we have. At the level of distributors, these are the people we have. At the level of consumers, these are the people we have. So we can sell these people this service just normal. It's not the beta version. It's just the MVP, and these people will be able to use it. The premium services will be able to offer it to people within these other income brackets. So we segment them in different ways. Geographic segmentation. Where is the customer base located? We're in Cameroon. Geographically, we have 10 broad regions, right, with different characteristics. But at that level, they are subdivided in unifying characteristics that makes 10 different regions. But when we look at the breakdown at another level, Cameroon is divided into 4 cultural regions. So there is a regrouping of different parts of the country into one. The Southwest, for instance, and Douala form one of these form the Sawa people. So there is still a further breakdown. So you want to be able to understand geographically what's the location. Where are my customers located? Are they located in the country called Cameroon? In which regions? We're into agriculture. Where are the agricultural rich zones in Cameroon? Maybe we have Southwest, we have West, we have maybe South, and all of that. So you want to be able to understand all of this. where these different persons are located in the country. Does my product or service require an element of climate to be able to determine its usability? So you want to find out what's the climatic the climate in these different areas. Are they going to be able to wear thick wool fashioned dresses to their farms when it is hot? Are they in the temperate zones where it's very hot? So it means that if I'm producing for this segment of people living in doing farming in Douala, I shouldn't do something that is very thick because they'll not be able to use them in the farms. And so you'll not be able to enter that market with that kind of product. So you say, okay, now the people in Boya, it's cold. They have more of cold and all of that. So I think that if they get this to the farm, they can be able to use it even in the wet season. So the location will be able to help us understand how to further segment uh, our customers. The next one is psychographic. What's their lifestyle? What's their values, attitudes, interests? These are very important, especially for entrepreneurs, for startups that deal with, uh, in quotes, high value products, right? So you must be able to understand the kind of service you're offering. First of all, you understand, or it's a product you're offering. For instance, Lamborghini doesn't sell doesn't do market entry, doesn't do marketing based on price. No, that's not what they do. Their level of psychometric customer segmentation, it's they're selling lifestyles. They're selling lifestyles, lifestyle of the rich, of the top guys. They want you to have a certain attitude to how you use your money, how you spend your money. So it's not money that's in front, it's lifestyle they're selling to you. Rolex is selling lifestyle, it's selling values, the values of the rich, you know. So we have to be able to understand how people think, what their interests are, what their lifestyles are, to be able to penetrate the market through our customer segmentation. So coming back to Cameroon, in agriculture, how do farmers think in the different regions which we have identified? How do they think in the southwest? How do they think in the north? The northeast have a different way to think, which is it's like every other person. It's influenced by culture. The way they will think is influenced by culture, influenced by religion. You come down to the south where you have more of Christians, influenced by religion, influenced by their culture. So if you have to be able to sell to these different groups of people, you have to segment them within these borderlines. You have to understand how they think. That will drive their purchasing power in the long run, their behavioral. When we understand all of this, now we can be able to trace certain things. You know, this grouping will tell us, okay, in the course of doing that and of doing research, we're going to understand what their purchasing power is, what their purchasing history is, what kinds of things do they buy, when do they buy these kinds of things, how do they use it, for how long. You buy, for instance, you buy a soil testing meter for pH and all of that, and you get to use it for 5 years or use it for 10 years. That's if the producer does not implement a strategy for upgrade, product development. For how long do you use it before it gets bad? If it gets bad, what happens? Do they repair it or they discard and buy a new one? All of this data is very important for us to be able to use to segment the population. A very glaring point here to help us understand would be the purchasing history and usage rates between the global West and the global South. That's between, let's say, Europe and Africa. Most of the things we use here as second-hand goods, fairly used goods, are things that these people over there have used, and for oftentimes shorter period of time. They don't go right to the lifespan, the end of the lifespan of the products. They use them and they do garage sales, and it goes out, right? There is a quick turnover on usage. But when these things, for instance, come to Africa, to Cameroon, for instance, We tend to use them. Even a car that was supposed to have gone on retirement in 10 years, we panel beat it and we use it for the next 15 years plus. So our purchase history, we have to be able to understand it. We have to understand usage rates to be able to make uh, decisive and informed decisions on segmentation. Okay, right now we're continuing with early stage adopters. So we want to ask the kind of questions we've been asking to be able to create understanding. Who are they? Who are early stage adopters? When, for instance, we have events, maybe conferences or parties for university students or um, some other paid events. There's usually something that the organizers usually put on the tickets. When they're doing the promotion, the marketing, they talk about early birds. Early birds have a discount. People who are coming first, who are buying the tickets first, you have a discount. For your agility. As a reward uh to your uh, uh for you taking on the events, at first sight, and all of that. So who really are these people? And we have a list of things that defines them, so to speak. So early adopters are people who want to be the first triers of things, and they want to retry. They want to be the first to try things, and they want to be the first to retry. These are people who are usually seen as visionary in so many ways. They are driven by need. They're always looking for things that provide solution to a problem or augment an existing solution. They're always looking for those things. Those things that are changes, that game changers in any way. There are people who are risk takers. They're opinion leaders. Usually they can influence others, and they have some kind of qualitative or quantitative following, you know, in various ways. We can look at this. These descriptions of them, of early adopters, is very dynamic. You know, in different spheres, it would have relatively different implication. Okay. So these are who these people are, these are who they are. They are all of these things and more. And when we look at this graph to my right, it talks about the innovation adoption cycle. And when we look at it, we would see that the people whom we're talking about today, early adopters, they form 13.5% of this graph. So here we have innovators, we have early adopters, we have early majority, we have late majority, we have laggards, and they have different percentages. Innovators 2.5, early adopters 13.5, early majority 34%, late majority 34, laggards 16. Our focus is here, early adopters, because these are the guys who drive change. These are the guys who are capable of securing you that early market entry. These are the guys who are able to give you an almost instant feedback on your product or your service or on your offering, for you to be able to pivot or iterate or do some development on the product or on your service offering. So very important. This is whom these people are. There are those guys whom, when you tell, maybe you have them. It's These are not people who are supernatural. They are not. It's not an abstraction. It could be your friend. Maybe you have a team of 5 persons, for instance, and there's an idea that comes up, and you throw it out there to your friends, and you see the way they behave, or you see the way they behave. There are those who easily pick on the idea. They won't ask you to be explaining so many things. What are the downsides of this thing? What will happen if I use it for 3 months? What will happen? But no, no, no. As you tell them that, say, Sophie, I think that this line of business, I think that is good for us. Let's engage in this, and I see a bright future in it. This is happening, this is happening. I think this will be good in future. Instantly, they just said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. They don't ask all so many questions. They are risk takers. They take the risk and say, okay, let's jump. We don't know how we're going to learn or when we're going to learn, but let's just do it. Let's do it and see what comes out of it. So that is whom early adopters are. Ideally, before we get to early adopters, we have innovators. So the people who define the overall early market, it's a combination of the innovators and the early adopters. The innovator is someone like you who is here today, who is an entrepreneur, who is an engineer, who is a business person, who has the idea. Because for you to be able to share an idea with somebody, it means it's an idea which you have, right? Whether you heard it from somebody or it's yours that you came up with and all of that, it's an idea which you have. It means you are running with it first. You're running with it first, and you have that at 2.5%. One question which we could ask is, why is it at 2.5%? It's kind of the same reason why we can ask one of the same questions we can ask. What does it mean, the 1%, the 1% that they always talk about in business, in economics, the 1% rich people in the world and successful people in the world? You know, why is that? It's because there are usually very few people who come up with ideas and they decide to act on it. So we have over 8 billion plus people in the world. About 5%, science is proving that about 5% are thinking the same thing across the world at the same time. But now, who makes the difference about this is the person that acts on it. The curve dwindles with at the level of taking action. So many people can think about so many beautiful things, but only a very few amount of people will actually put it into practice. That's why innovators there, it's very small. So they form part of the early markets. But when we are really discussing about early adopters, as those who adopt the idea that innovators provide, that an entrepreneur brings, we are looking at the 13.5%. Okay, on the next slide, we want to answer why early adopters. I think we glided into this in the previous slide in the discussions. Why do we want to be able to understand early adopters? Why do we want to talk about them? Why do we want to be able to bring them within the confines of defining, of identifying a customer segment? Why do we want to? For several reasons. One, they'll provide us with first on feedback, right? You are probably, you send them a product review. Maybe you've built a website for web developers. Maybe you've built a website and you send it out there for review, and the guy or the lady just jumps on it and just looks at it and tells you, oh, this, I think this is this. Maybe change the coloring here, maybe make the landing page to be like this. Maybe you don't put this text box here, or this icon here, or this feedback form here, move it this way, maybe make the home page to look like this, and all of that. So they do early testing, right? And they give you feedback. Okay, this is what I think about it. This is what I think about it, and this is what I think it could be, and how it could be better. So they give you that. So that's why they are very important. With that, they have the ability to be able to drive community engagement. When there is a new, when maybe let me see which company can we use. When MTN, for instance, wanted to launch its Momo app, it signed up with different artists, headliners in Cameroon. You know, these are at their levels, they are like they can drive community engagement because of the status they have attained as stars in the artistic world, maybe in music. They have huge followings, and if they get to post something or if they get to say something, they get to use something, other people want to use it, or uh, they just being part of it, on billboards and all of that. uh, Other people want to just use those things because they identify with this group of persons, so they're able to drive community engagement, you know and they can also signal market offering or potentials, right? So if for instance if for instance you're launching a product or a service in agriculture that we're talking about, maybe you made Elizabeth Teke, her story and all of that. She grew up in the plantations. She's been able to cultivate and work and all of that, interacting with farmers and all of that. Yeah, so she's perfect. So you use Elizabeth Teke, to be able to talk about the solution you want to bring in agriculture. And she looks at it, and maybe she tries to use it. Maybe it's a new tilling machine. You know, maybe you give her to experiment for you to take videos and all of that, and she's experimenting on the farm, and she faces some challenges using it and all of that. Maybe pressing the button and it doesn't work very well, or it's doing something and it doesn't go so well, or it takes the amount of time that she uses the machine to till this to till a 15 meters earth. If she did it with a hoe or with a pickaxe, it would have been much faster, and all of that. Maybe the machine kept having breakdown and all of that. And maybe she gives you a feedback that, okay, I think these are the things that you should fix. Maybe if she explains the things that I challenge with the solution, hoping that the company or you're going to make those changes. And after a while, nothing changes, and this already signals issues with the offering, with what you're offering, the service you're offering, or the product you're offering, and it gives you a foresight of what the market will be like. So if you take that product unresolved, with those unresolved challenges, those fixes that you didn't do, you take it to a much larger market, much larger audience, then these same things repeat themselves. It's already a challenge, right? Which before now had been spotted out. You had those signals, but nothing was done about it to be able to make it even much better, at that level in agriculture. Yeah, so early adopters are very important for feedback and how they can drive early market entry. So they equally form the bridge to later adopters. So when early adopters are able to adopt your offering and they give positive reviews and feedback, it encourages the late majority, the first 34%, to be able to want to use that offering, to be able to be part of that offering. And now when these guys come on board, now we start looking at critical mass. Here we start looking at critical mass. This is where now as startups, as entrepreneurs, investors start becoming very interested. In investors, maybe at the level of proof of concept. Proof of concept, you really need early adopters to be able to use that product. To validate if it is something worthwhile, if it's something worth pursuing and all of that. And when this has been done, you've had maybe idea validation here, concept validation, or prototype validation and all of that. It attracts now the critical mass at its level of the early majority, which is very important for you as a startuper, because here venture capitalists start becoming very interested. They're very interested at this level. Early adopters, people will fund there. You can also have angel investors at this level, at this level of your population, of your customer segmentation. Angel investors They are also risk takers. They are early adopters as well. So they are risk takers as well. They are visionaries. They can see things, far beyond the challenges that they probably understand that you're going to have, but they can see and all of that. So they can come in here at early adopters, and be able to drive that, take some risk with you. But to be able to do this point, to be able to bridge to later adopters, to have this critical mass, which is very crucial. Early adopters are meant to be that bridge that will now introduce you into this segment of the population, the early majority, the late majority that come into play, and maybe the laggards at the end. How do we connect? How can we connect with early adopters? Where can we meet these early adopters? The first uh, myth that we want to demystify is that these people are not they're not abstract. They're not abstractions. They live with us every day. They're part of our community. They're part of our circles. We could even be one of them. It's a mindset which action is taken upon. So how can we find these kinds of people, especially those that are already identified and established and they act as early adopters? They have that ingredient, in them as early adopters. How can we find them? One, to be able to find them, our product, our service, our offering needs to focus on the new, the change. We're going to look at this concept a little bit later, towards the end, not long from now. The new, the change. So an innovation could be something that is new, entirely new, that is not very popular in existence, or it could be something that is new because it is a change done on something that is already in pre-existence, very much in pre-existence. So early adopters are drawn to this kind of things. They're drawn to the innovation, to the newness, whether it's you're augmenting a product, a service in a particular way, or it's something that is completely diverging from the existing versions of it. They are very much into this. How differently you are servicing the fashion industry for within to address issues within the agricultural value chain. They are very interested in this kinds of changes. So the service offer, they are drawn to better versions, new releases you send to them, maybe the review, you call their attention to it, to present it to them in these different places that you can meet them, and all of that. So one very important thing on connecting with early adopters, early stage adopters, is for us to be able to seek subject specific influencers or know how to break the rule. So if your startup is into agriculture, you should be able to look at influencers, early adopters around agriculture, because they'll be able to pull the specific market that you're looking at, which is will be more sustainable than maybe in agriculture, and you focus entirely on getting early adopters who are very much into music. There is a disparity there. There is that disconnect between who your users are, and who the early adopters would seem to be. If you look at adverts that are done in different things, in different areas, you would see a semblance between the kinds of people and images that are used in those adverts and the product or the service that has been advertised. If you look at, for instance, Nat Geo Wild, National Geographic. Look at the kinds of adverts there that are done in different areas in wildlife, in different areas in things on agriculture. in different areas in things of water or energy, you'd see a kind of semblance between maybe uh, the pictures that are being used and the thing that is being advertised. You know, not going very far. Look, even in Cameroon, look at MTN, look at Orange. When they want to release a product that talks maybe about uh, women and youth as entrepreneurs, you'd see the woman that they're going to use and how she relates with maybe the common man, and maybe in their dressing, you know in their headscarf, in all of these things, right? So you want to be able to look for subjects, for early adopters that share the same values. We talked about values up there, that have the kind of interests with what you're trying to propose, because early adopters are intricately linked with defining our customer segments. Let's look at this nexus here. So here we have the green tick, which says that's what is best for us to do, and we have the X there in the red background that says that's not what is best for us to do. So we want to use this equation: early adopters within the customer segment equal sustainable and retained market entry and growth, whereas early adopters out of the customer segment equal unsuitable market entry and growth. And we just explained this in the previous slide. It's kind of summary. Okay. Let's go back to Pelage's question, which says, what difference is there between users and early adopters? One is a subset of the other. Early adopters are a subset of users, right? Uh, the word users will have different connotations in different things. Users, there's also the question that always comes up: users and customers. Usually customers are people who pay, you know, people who pay for the service or the product. Users could be anybody that uses the solution. Yeah, so a customer is still part of the users. An early adopter is part of an early adopter is part of the users. You know, this graph, for instance, on the innovation adoption cycle, it was propounded by Everett. He's a scholar. The adoption cycle talks about, we have different users here, right? Bill Gates, for instance, he uses what he produces, right? Um, Elon Musk, let's use the very contemporary examples. Elon Musk drives a Tesla, so he's a user of the product, and he's the innovator, right? He's part of the innovators, so he's a user at this level, right? Early adopters are users who are the first persons to make use of the service or the product after it's been introduced by the innovators, right? So Tesla is developed, and it's put on early release. You know what they usually do? There's early release before the actual release date. For the high earned users who can access it. So early users are those first guys that can access that early user opportunity. The early birds that take on that risk. That's even if this thing is not going to launch completely on the date that it said it was going to launch, but I'm going to use it anyways, and whatever happens, right? So they are early users, same as these other people in this graph. Early majority, late majority, laggards. Laggards are people who are very contemptuous. They are thinking they want everybody to use it and tell them the good things about it and the bad things about it. They'll wait maybe it depends on the kind of product or service. Sometimes laggards can start using some things maybe even 5 years after the thing was launched. It's everywhere around us. We have our parents who when Momo came into play or Orange Money, they will never put their money there. They tell you that those guys are going to steal their money. And though they have waited for several years to be able to see what's going to happen, and they have built confidence in the system and say, okay, I think I can put my 1,000 francs in Momo and use it for this or that, right? Those are laggards, and their formation it's in different ways. Age can make some people laggards because of uh, their own age brackets. People who were born in maybe 1950s, 1960s would see the world differently from what Gen Zs will see, or from what Beta or Alpha, the Alpha generation is going to see, right? Okay. The objective. At the beginning, we talked about an objective in being able to carry this right to the end, to understand exactly why we want to understand. um, we want to talk about identifying customer segments and uh, early adopters, right? And one of the things that we want to be able to clarify is that we have to understand that the first must not be new, right? The first must not be new. So early adopters they're looking at changes. And um, in defining your customer segments, it's not just about who is the first adopter, right? The different characteristics that we've looked at in being able to segment your or your customer base. You know, maybe it's age, maybe it's location, maybe it's marital status, maybe it's family, based on the product or service which you're offering. You know, so it could be first, it could be new, right? It could be the first, but it's not entirely new. So these are things that we get to play around with. So we have to understand that the first must not be new. The other objective of this is to be able to take us back to the top. When we started, I tried to take us backwards to the session that was on personal on developing personas. You know, it was not just on personas, but it was on from prototype to MVP. You know, and uh, in it you learned about defining the persona of your business, of your customer segments. You know, so going back there, what user persona or personas did you identify during that first webinar on this series? So if you were able to, if you were part of that webinar, and you did that assignment, you were able to identify the different personas, then you would have more clarity on the things that we've talked about today. And here's what you're going to do with that. You know, continue with that. You're going to use the persona that you already developed, you already identified, and if you didn't, maybe you have to identify yours. And when you identify the different persona uh, for your business, regroup them again now according to the different parameters that we've also looked at here. So we've added and improved on identifying the personas. You know, maybe the persona for an agric, for a local producer in agriculture at the category of producers is someone who is short. It's a girl, it's a boy uh, who graduated from the university and read agricultural sciences, you know, and all of that. So all of that, it's the persona you're describing. So you can have multiple personas for your as part of your customer segments. You know, as part of your customer segment, you could have different kinds of personas that form one category of the segmentation.